Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Tea Time History Chat Live. I'm Philippa Lacey-Brull. I hope you are doing well this week. That's better. On Instagram, you now have a picture as well. Don't know what happened there. How are you all? Welcome. I'm streaming live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Welcome to if you're on the catch-up crew or you're listening on the podcast. Today, I want to tell you a bit about Tewkesbury Abbey. You may see that I was there. When was I there? I was actually at Tewkesbury Friday through till Sunday, having a lovely time. And I want to tell you a little bit more about the Abbey, a bit more that I found out. We'll talk a little bit about the coronation chair because it's in the news today. It's only a little bit short, but anyway. Tewkesbury also links into the dissolution of the monasteries, which I want to talk about because there is a fantastic book and I'm about to do an interview with its author and I want to tell you about it because I'd like your input. And I'll let you know what's going on History After Dark tonight as well, because if you're around at 8:15 UK time tonight, we are talking Henry VIII in History After Dark. I've just told you what we're doing. But anyway, I'll remind you later as well, so that if you're around, you can join us. Living an Eclectic Life, hi, welcome. You've made it to a live chat. I don't know what time it is where you are, but hi, hello everyone joining on Instagram. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I have got my new mic set up, so hopefully it is all working perfectly fine. Hello Mayfair Forest Witch, how are you doing? I can see lots of familiar names, so please just pop a hi in the comments. Is there anything that you've seen going on in the history world this week that you want to talk about? Pop it in the comments, and if it's something I can pick up on, then I will. So as usual, thank you so much to all of you who support me. You have paid for my new mics, or you are paying for my new mics, so that's very helpful. Thank you. On Instagram, you can buy badges which do things like change the color of your heart, so why would you not want to do that? On YouTube, there are super chats. On Facebook, there are stars. Excellent, Facebook. Thank you for catching up. If you are watching on the playback, so you're in the catch-up crew, you might not be able to do any of that. So you could go to buymeacoffee.com/Philippa, or so that I can give you back something, you could come over to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/British history. And there you see, I can give you lots back. We have exclusive blogs. I know I'm behind. I apologize on those to any of you who are in my Patreon. Hi, Heidi over there in the Netherlands. How are you? Thank you for joining. Oh, actually, in Patreon at the moment as well. So one of the perks is you get to ask historians a question. When I'm interviewing historians, you get to submit a question. So that is something I'm actually asking Patreons to do at the moment, which I'll let you know a bit more about. Denny and Mark, thank you. You have joined this week. So you get the blog, you get 10% discount on event tickets, you get extended historian interviews with no adverts, you get to ask your own questions, you get book club I shouldn't forget about. We've got our first meeting on the 19th of March and we're reading Gareth Russell's book on the Titanic at the moment. So if you're interested in joining book club, then that is over on Patreon as well, and it's £5 a month. So anyway, there you go. Just thought I'd let you know. I like Patreon because it means I can give you back as well. But if you want to do a badge or a super chat or a star, then I'm equally grateful for that. So let's get started. Let me get on to first of all this. Oh, Lisa's got her cup of tea. I have got my cup of tea, my Queen Bee mug today. So yeah, hopefully if you've all got a tea, or I don't know what time it is in the world where you are, an appropriate beverage, let's sit down and chat history. So I wanted to mention, and I was hoping to have the physical book with me today, and I haven't. It's I've become a avid book depository person. I've moved over from Amazon. I don't know. Apparently, I'm told it's better. I don't know, but I am waiting on my. Melissa, it's 8 a.m. Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. That's tea time, isn't it? Over there in Ontario. Um, so yeah, so I was hoping to have this book that I'm about to tell you about in my hands today. So when I do, I will show it to you. But I'm just finished this book on Audible, and it's called Dissolution of the Monasteries: A New History. And I saw it recommended in Tudor Places magazine. Um, by the way, I have an interview with the editor of Tudor Places magazine that just went live on my YouTube channel on last Friday. It's called Underneath the Covers. We're talking about how Deb Royal has put together the magazine, what's involved in doing it. 7 a.m. in Oklahoma. Good morning. What's involved in the magazine, what's coming up for the magazine. So if you want to take a look at that, then that is on my YouTube channel. But in the magazine, they also recommend books, and Dissolution of the Monastery: A New History by James Clark was recommended in the magazine. I'm not quite sure why that one caught my eye more than any of the others that are in there. Hi, Jenna, I can see joining Creative Rain, 11 p.m. in Southern Australia. So have you got something a little more nightcappy? You can't have caffeine after lunchtime, so whiskey is probably the way to go. Lisa's just finished watching Wolf Hall. Oh yeah, about Thomas Cromwell. Excellent series. So yeah, so this book that so in Tudor Places, it caught my eye, and I think it's partly because a new history. Well, hang on, don't we know everything about the dissolution of the monasteries? Isn't it just actually 4 years of Henry and Cromwell pretending that they're reforming the monasteries, but in fact just intentionally and just what's the word I'm looking for? Sequentially shutting them and taking their money so that Henry can then afford all his wars that he wants to do, because he needs something to show his prowess, and war is supposed to be the way to go. So I'm just trying to get the comments up. And it's not letting me do it. So good afternoon, Jenna. Adrienne says Dermot McCulloch reviewed it in the London Review of Books. Oh, fantastic. Yes, I think I think he might have done a foreword to the book, the printed book. I'm not sure, but I'll know when I get it. So yes, I was thinking, well, how do we know? And this book is big. It's a big one. Again, always listen to it on Audible first when there's a big book. It takes away the stress of looking at a tome. So I have anyway, so I've just finished it on Audible and waiting for the physical copy. Oh my goodness, there is so much that we need to talk about the dissolution of the monasteries. So much. So much. There is as many individual stories as there were individuals affected by the closure of the monastic institutions. The many assumptions, like for instance, the lead was worth so much that it was stripped off the roofs and it was sold and sort of. The bells would have been taken down and melted down and sold, sort of. The story changes. It's so nuanced. There's so much of interest in there about how it was done politically, socially, physically on the ground. So, for instance, like I said about the iron, it actually to get iron, uh, out of off a roof, out of whatever, and melted down into what they call a pig, and then transported somewhere else is costly. There has to be a buyer for it. All these sorts of things. It's so nuanced. It is absolutely fascinating. So I am very happy to let you know. I think I might have mentioned this week, but I can definitely confirm it now that I will be interviewing James Clark, the author of this book. I will be interviewing him in a couple of weeks' time for that interview to be available either March or April. I have to look how it fits in the schedule. if you want to ask your own question to James, you don't have to have read the book. You can just anything about the dissolution of the monasteries. Then you can, if you head over to my Patreon, this is a Patreon perk, and you can submit your own question for James. And what I do with those is I do the interview, and then we have a section at the end, which is just the Patreon's questions, and only Patreons get to listen to that part of the interview. So not only is the interview that patrons get ad free, it's also longer, and it includes their own their questions and the answers to those questions. So if you're interested in that, head over to patreon.com/British history. You can join me there. It's £5 a month, and you can get your questions submitted for James. And there's loads of other good reasons to be in my Patreon as well. So let me just put that on YouTube so you can see. So this book as well, I would highly recommend it. I'll do a review of it as well. I've got a review to put on my website, which is British History Tours. I have a review to put on of Mortal Monarchs by Susie Edge, whose interview you can also see on my channel. That is already live. And I will also do a review of the Dissolution of the Monasteries book. So this does actually link nicely into the place I want to talk to you about today. Now, I did promise two places, Tewkesbury and Belvoir Castle. Well, I set off to Belvoir Castle yesterday morning, and an HGV turned over on the M5 and scuppered my plans completely, and I just sat on the motorway for 2 hours. So I will be heading to Belvoir Castle, but not yesterday, and it will be, I think it's next week. So I will be able to talk to you about it the week after. So come back in a couple of weeks and I will talk to you about Belvoir Castle. Belvoir Castle was the setting for the for lots of things, but the real life inspiration behind Tracy Borman's Witches trilogy. And she actually wrote a book, the non-fiction book called James I and the English Witch Hunts, on which her Tracy Borman's trilogy, fictional trilogy, is based, which was interesting. She talks about that in I did a Stuart online history festival last autumn, and she talks about why she wrote a fiction book, and it was actually to kind of, if you're writing non-fiction, you have to stick to the evidence, I suppose, and the facts. The conjecture can only go so far, whereas in fiction there are no barriers to how you can express the history. And she felt that the non-fiction book couldn't really relay the horrors really of the witch hunts satisfactorily or enough. But Belvoir Castle, spelt Belvoir, Belvoir, was the setting of something that happened to some women called the Flowers women, a mother and two daughters, one of whom was called Philippa, actually, same as me. So yes, Belvoir Castle was the setting for some events which led to the Flowers women being persecuted for witchcraft, persecuted and put on trial and executed. So I will be going there. And I will speak to you about it when I do, but that should have been yesterday. The other place I promised you is Tewkesbury, and that ties in very lovely with the dissolution of the monasteries, which we've just been talking about. Living an eclectic life. Did you say you don't get books from Amazon? Where do you get them from? How's it different to? I'm purchasing book club books. You can get them from Amazon, and I have a Amazon shop actually. So all the books I recommend are on my Amazon shop. But I'm just trying the book depository for now, just to see, actually, because I'm also ordering books for my daughter on Greek mythology and they have the full set. So that's why. Mayfair Forest, which disappointment, yeah, for Had fans hearing that it's not in fact Beaver Castle. I know. Belvoir. Which so supposedly, and I can't remember, I think my son looked this up and said, why is it spelt Belvoir and pronounced Beaver? And there's some daft, I don't know, idea that it's because the locals couldn't pronounce it. I think I would supplant wouldn't pronounce it into that as opposed to couldn't. And when, I don't know. Lisa, war against women, the witchcraft trials. Well, yes, there were men, of course, also accused of witchcraft, but it was the yeah the persecution of witches in James I's reign, during James I's reign in England, was harrowing. A few years ago, I went over to Colchester. There's still I'm trying to think whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. There's still a video of me in the cells underneath where a lot of the people were brought. So Marie, how are you? I'm loving the fit today. Fit? I think we'll need OOTD updates nowadays to get ideas there too, please. You're going to have to translate that for me. Okay. So yeah, and the feel in the cells where these women were kept. I mean, they were tortured. They were tortured by keeping them awake often. Oh, my outfit. Thank you, darling. Thank you. Yeah, they were kept awake, which any of you with a puppy or a baby or noisy neighbours will know is horrible to be kept awake. So they would fall asleep and they would make them wake up until they confessed. And there wasn't a lot required. Really, it was just a great way of snitching on your neighbour if you didn't like them, would be to accuse them of witchcraft, especially if they were a single woman, or elderly woman, disabled, anything that made them stick out, made them not fit in, would be a reason. It's horrible. But Tracy talks about that on the talk she did for the Stuart Online History Festival, which if you want to see that, you can actually still see that. We have the Georgians Online History Festival starting on the 24th of March. It's the 24th, 25th and 26th of March. It's all online, so it doesn't matter where you are. And it's you can buy the Stuart Online History Festival talks bundle as an add-on to your ticket. So you can get that on Eventbrite, which is the Georgians 2023. So the Georgians 2023.eventbrite.co.uk, which I've put up on YouTube and Facebook and on Instagram after this. If you want to, you can go to my bio and there's links to everything I talk about. So in fact, I've just uploaded Tracy's talk for the Georgians Online History Festival. She's talking about Henrietta Howard, who any of you who joined us for last week's History After Dark about the Georges will recognise the name Henrietta Howard. She was the mistress of George II. And she had incredibly awful, actually, younger life and first marriage, but became mistress of George II until she managed to engineer him telling her bye-bye, but with all her rights and money intact. Marie, so people were not overtly horrible way back then. They were openly doing it. Yes, of course. They still do nowadays. Yeah. So, well, the thing is, it's, I mean, the thing is about war against women. This was people against people. You know, women were accusing other women. So it's, you know, it's kind of, it's not a man versus woman thing. My bracelet is moonstone. Yes, I think it is. So my daughter and I have a matching, yeah. Although I have a horrible habit of pinging mine and then breaking them and then everything going everywhere. Marie, I need to string 2 words together. Yes, well, it's some days are like that. Yesterday, after sitting on the motorway for 2 hours and going 2 miles, I wasn't good for much, I can tell you that. So, yeah, so I didn't make it to Belvoir Castle. When I do, I will be able to tell you all about it. But I have enjoyed that little reminder of the part that Belvoir Castle played in the witch hunts. But where I did manage to get to is Tewkesbury. Actually, I was staying at Tewkesbury Park Hotel, which is the hotel that I'm using for the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour in June. It starts the 29th of June. I don't know if any of you saw my reel, but I had to do a reel about of the hotel. It's just beautiful. The views, so there's views all the way around the hotel. It's sort of perched on the top of a hill. The grounds, part of the grounds is the edge of the 1471 Battle of Tewkesbury battlefield. So where the Battle of Tewkesbury was fought, that comes into the grounds. And it's a beautiful hotel. You can see down to Tewkesbury Abbey from the hotel as well. So that was beautiful. I've been to Tewkesbury Abbey many times, but like any of our historic locations, there's always something else to either see or learn about. Now, but running back to talking about the dissolution of the monasteries, obviously Tewkesbury Abbey has its name Abbey. When that was so just to give you an idea, I've bought another book. I don't expect you. I'm going to read this one for you. This is all about Tewkesbury Abbey, and it has in there about the dissolution. It was dedicated to someone else first. It might have been Mary. I might have that wrong. But it's been known as Tewkesbury Abbey for a while, and I don't know whether it ever wasn't. One of the things that James Clark mentions in his books is how they are how places are still known colloquially as an abbey or a priory. So yeah. Magtino, did I see the documentary movie about Anne Boleyn? Which one? No, I haven't. I haven't actually. I think I'm a bit behind. There's a few that I need to catch up on. Marie, I'm seriously with your son on this. It's just mental that it's spelt Belvoir and then they make us pronounce it Beaver. I think it's. I mean, in English, we have so many of these. It's clearly. Oh, I'm saying clearly. I'll find out. Got some kind of maybe French root. So whether it was a on principle thing at some point, I don't know. I'm completely guessing. But yeah, Belvoir Castle sounds much better in Belvoir. Sorry, Magtino, about helping Tyndale, I imagine, to translate the Bible into English. I know, I will have to look into that. Thank you. Barbara, hi, how are you? And Brian, welcome. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. So let me tell you about Tewkesbury then. So yeah, so I went back down to the Abbey, Katie, Mrs. Bouquet. Any of you seen what was it called? Keeping Up Appearances with Patricia Hod. No, Patricia. What was her name? The actress. Anyway, her name's Mrs. Bucket, but she pronounced it Mrs. Bouquet. It's classic. You have to look it up if you've not seen it. We'll get on to Tewkesbury Abbey in a minute. Sorry, keep getting distracted. But thank you for your comments. I really love. I love it when you're commenting, and I can. Routledge, thank you, Barbara. Patricia Routledge. Oh, she was wonderful. Wasn't she wonderful? I did a live from Tewkesbury Abbey while I was there, which you can have a thank you and Davies. You can look back on my live if you want to. from Tewkesbury last week. I was just having a look around the outside. The Abbey Church is a fantastic um, uh, example of Benedictine monastic church, and this church was used by the parishioners as well. And actually, where the rood screen used to be, which would have um, uh, which would have delineated sort of the monk side of the church to the lay person's place where they would worship, that is so easy to miss now because they've put a stone ramp. It's wonderfully done, but they've put a stone ramp up. There's a small step, and the stone ramp on both sides of the nave means that you don't notice. But that would have been where the church would have been separated. And the parishioners actually bought the church after it was dissolved, after the abbey was dissolved, and they spent a lot on it. I was going to look up the equivalent. I haven't had chance, I'm afraid, but it's £483 that the parishioners bought the abbey church for. The rest of the buildings were dismantled in some way, shape or form, or put to another purpose. So I did my live from outside to show to show in part how little is left. You can see evidence where the cloisters had been. Now these cloisters apparently were incredibly fine. They could have been, if we'd have still had them, they would have rivaled the famous cloisters of Gloucester Cathedral. But unfortunately, we don't have them. We don't have much of the monastic buildings left at all at Tewkesbury Abbey. And yet Tewkesbury was one of the last abbeys to be surrendered, and it was one of the most wealthy in that part of the country. So, excuse me for sniffing. In the Valor Ecclesiasticus, which was in fact, I heard it described as this the other day, and it's right. It's like a doomsday book of the monasteries. So the Valor Ecclesiasticus was a systematic recording or assessment and recording of the wealth, possessions, income of every religious house in the country, of which I'm trying to remember now what James has said in his book, how many there were, it's something like 600 and something monasteries and 180 priories, something like that. There was a lot. And Tewkesbury was one of the final ones to be surrendered. Like I say, the actual final one was Waltham Abbey. And it was the last one to be surrendered in Gloucestershire, in the county that it's in, very soon after Hales Abbey. Actually, Hales Abbey, I'm going to keep plugging it. Hales Abbey and Tewkesbury Abbey are both in the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour this June and July. So, and we're not running it again. So if you do want to do it, then get booked. I'm closing bookings on the 31st of March. So this is your last chance. But the Valor Ecclesiasticus assessed the annual income, I'm going to read this out, for Tewkesbury at £1,598, 10 shillings and 3 pence. Now there was the 3 subsidiary houses as well: Cranbourne, St James's, Bristol, and Deerhurst. Any of you who are in my Patreon, you'll remember I went to Deerhurst because there's incredible Anglo-Saxon history in Deerhurst. And it's not sort of known about now, and yet that would have been a central place during Anglo-Saxon England and the establishment of monasteries, in fact. But so a huge annual income for Tewkesbury Abbey. The abbot received £253, 14 shillings and 17 and a quarter pence per year as his salary, plus he held the cellarer income as well, which was a staggering £842, 18 shillings and 11 pence, which means the abbot alone earned over £1,000 a year. So we're talking a really substantial monastery. And when you go now, as you will have seen in my live, the church is incredible. It's fantastic. But there's hardly anything else around. Now, the there's lots of detail to obviously find out about each individual monastery, as actually James's book again shows just each individual monastery or a monastic house or religious house, should I say, has almost a unique story to tell about how it was surrendered and dissolved, and also inside in that each individual abbot monk had a different experience as well. The so Tewkesbury Abbey has this incredible income, and yet its expenditure on alms is pretty pathetic. It's like £15 a year to clothe 6 students, I think it was, or something, so it seems a bit, and yet the money they spent on spices was huge. It was dissolved in January 1540, so like I say, one of the final monastic houses to be surrendered, but there must have been an element of voluntarily surrendering, or at least being not putting up a fight, because the abbot had a pension, and the pension was £266, 13 shillings and 14 pence a year. So the pension was huge, and people didn't get that if they resisted. Maria, 720 pages. If there's enough for an entire book, I feel we've not been given the entire story before now. Well, this is why I'm absolutely desperate to speak to James. Like I keep saying, I'm interviewing James Clark. If you've got a question about the dissolution of the monasteries, please do go over to my Patreon at patreon.com/British history and put it in. You've got a week to submit your question. Yes, there is a lot. There's a lot in there. He speaks about there's many practicalities as to the dissolution, because you think of the abbots and the monks, but for instance at Tewkesbury you had 40 monks and 114 servants, and on the dissolution the abbot and the monks at Tewkesbury got a pension of varying levels depending on their seniority. The servants, the people who actually worked, because you got to remember as well, monasteries had flocks of sheep, cattle. There were people working. They just got given their final salary and were dismissed, and that was it. So you had monks who had, many of them actually went into the church. Again, there's so many different stories. People who accepted it and went into the new church, people who didn't, and what happened to them, the women. Abbesses, some of them did very well, some of them did not. The only vow that the women were not released from was their vow of chastity, which meant they couldn't marry. And if they weren't getting a good pension, they were then reliant on their family, perhaps. Common law marriages weren't uncommon after that point for them, because it's a woman hasn't got another way of, she can't work, she can't, she needs to marry. So yeah, 720 pages of gold, I would say, is the book. So what else? So at Tewkesbury you had the monks then, so the abbot and the monks did receive a pension. So although they held out Or they were late surrendering, or they were later surrendering. So the surrendering started in 1536 and went on till 1540. They were January 1540, like I said, just after Hales Abbey. But the monks were pensioned off, the servants were just let go. Ciao, Monica, over there in Italy, watching on Facebook. How are you? And when you go around, the more I learn about Tewkesbury Abbey and go around the abbey, the just the more fascinating it gets. It's beautiful anyway. It's also it's the burial place of quite a few interesting people. The You will have heard of, obviously, of George, Duke of Clarence. He is buried there. He was the one of the brothers of Edward IV, the other brother being Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who went on to become Richard III. All three brothers were fought at the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471. And like I said, that battlefield runs up to the hotel that I'm using in June for the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour. The reason, by the way, we're visiting Tewkesbury for the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour is she visited there in the summer of 1535 with Henry VIII. So you're walking in her footsteps, and we're using the backdrop of the summer progress of 1535 to tell Anne Boleyn's story from a different angle. Her as a woman as well as a queen. And we're joined by Gareth Russell, is the tour historian on that tour, and he will be giving us a series of 3 talks to take us through her life, her heritage to begin with, and her early life, the good years, I suppose that's not what he's going to call the talk, but the run up to 15 and encompassing 1535 progress, and then the what happened, the downfall. But because Anne has this wonderful summer. The monasteries don't, by the way, because the monasteries at this point are beginning to get their visitations when they're starting to put together this Vala Ecclesiasticus, the doomsday book of the monasteries. By middle of May 1536, less than a year later, she has been executed at the Tower of London. Lottie Rose, reading about the Battle of Tewkesbury makes me want to yeet myself into the sun. Is that the Battle of Tewkesbury? Yeah, it's interesting. So you can walk around the battlefield. Well, you can walk along the battlefield trail, where you can go to the spot where the I think it was the Lancastrian camp was sighted. You can walk through. They actually every year, certainly pre-pandemic, hopefully I think they have started it again now. They have an annual festival where they recreate the battle. I mean, it's not obviously as much as you can. But if you walk the battlefield trail, which I've done on, I think I did it on YouTube, I might have done it on Instagram last year, you can get an idea of just how much ground is covered in a battle. And yes, you can walk through the site of I think it is the Lancastrian camp. You walk through somewhere called Bloody Meadow, where the Lancastrians were kind of hemmed in and then slaughtered. And the reason that they couldn't escape easily is there's a brook which is still there. So you can see it now. So back to the 3 brothers. So that's Edward, the Yorkists were fighting the Lancastrians. The Lancastrians, that was Margaret of Anjou's forces. She wasn't on the battlefield, but her son was, Edward, Prince of Wales, the only son and heir of Henry VI, versus the Yorkists, Edward IV and his brothers, George, Duke of Clarence, and Richard, Duke of Gloucester at the time, would later become Richard III. The Yorkists were victorious. This was the final battle of the Wars of the Roses, and that is because Edward, Prince of Wales, was slaughtered. And Henry VI was already imprisoned in the Tower of London, so he was already in the custody of the Yorkists, and then his son is killed at or soon after the battle, and he is buried in the abbey. The brass work that shows, and if you've seen my Instagram, you'll or Facebook, you'll have seen the picture. The brasswork, I haven't looked it up, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's Victorian. It looks Victorian. So I'm not sure what marked Edward, Prince of Wales' grave before that point. And I don't think it marks the exact spot. I could be wrong, but I think it marks that he is there. Now, the fortunes were going to turn on the Yorkists, of course, because George, Duke of Clarence, turns against his brother Edward IV, and cut a very long story short, eventually is executed for treason. He's executed at the Tower of London. This is the famous Vat of Malmsey wine execution, and his body is brought to Tewkesbury to be buried. And his wife Isabel is also buried. They're buried behind the behind the high altar, without much. Again, a brass plaque. There are, though, some very, very interesting chantries and tombs. The Despenser family, which you would probably have heard the name, even if you can't quite place it. So Hugh Despenser was a favourite of Edward II. Lottie Rose, Clarence had the best death in history. He definitely had the most interesting one, didn't he? Yeah. We all remember it. So yeah, the Despenser family, they made Tewkesbury their mausoleum, and I think there's part of the it's not a cathedral, never has been, part of the abbey that you can't go into, which was set aside for them particularly, but there are chantries and tombs around the high altar. Hugh Despenser, the second one, and I think his father as well, were both executed. Hugh Despenser the second, Hugh, was hung, drawn and quartered at Hereford. His body brought back to the designated Despenser family mausoleum, which was Tewkesbury Abbey. But his son, I think another Hugh, when he died, his wife had a chantry chapel called the Trinity Chantry built. Now, it could be that it's so as you look at the high altar, it's on the right hand side, also on your right hand side, and there is a little door both sides into the to get to the high altar and the, whatever you call it, the other side. So possibly they put this where there used to be a door, is one theory. It is, but this chantry has the earliest known, I think, supposedly anyway, fan vaulted ceiling, and this is in the 14th century. So we think of fan vaulting straight away when we think about Henry VII, but here is fan vaulting, and you can again, I think I shared it on Instagram, but I'll do it again so that you can see, because it's really quite stunning. Melissa, very creative with names, weren't they? Yeah, not confusing at all. I think it went Hugh oh, Hugh Edward, Thomas, Richard. So yeah, difficult. So this is fan vaulting, vaulted ceiling of the chantry. Then there is still remaining paintings. So again, I'll share that with you later on Instagram. I might put it on YouTube as a short as well. But above the chantry, on the top of the chantry, is a kneeling effigy of it is Hugh, isn't it? Of Hugh III, Hugh Despenser III, and he's kneeling and facing the high altar, so as if in prayer, and it's unique. There, unless anyone else has seen one, I haven't seen one anywhere else, and I've read that it's unique, and until I find another one, I'll go with that. and I've got a photograph to share with you of it. But yeah, he's kneeling and looking toward the high altar. Could have been possibly that was going to be a bit of a dispenser thing, um, and it, but either the figures have since been um, removed, destroyed. Who knows? So, but this does make this one unique. Uh, what Marie wants to know my lipstick. I can tell you. I can tell you for all of you who are interested. It's MAC. All my makeup's MAC, and it's Meh 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 MEHR. I don't know how you pronounce it. There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now you can come with me to Tewkesbury. You can come with me to Tewkesbury on the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour, not to be repeated. So we go on the 29th of June. I am closing bookings on the 31st of March. So if you're interested in coming, then take a look at the link in my bio, or you can go to britishhistorytours.com for that and all the other tours. I must mention the Anne, right? So I've got the Private Life of Anne Boleyn tour this year. But every May, I just have the Anne Boleyn tour. And the reason it is the Anne Boleyn tour is that we stay at Hever, which is her childhood home. We take a trip out to Hampton Court Palace, and we go to the Tower of London on the 19th of May, the anniversary of Anne's execution. Gareth Russell is with me as the tour historian, and we have Kate McCaffrey coming to speak to us, and Tracy Borman, all confirmed already for May 2024. We are 75% full, already booked up. So it only went on sale last week. So when I say these things sell out quickly, this one in particular really, really does. So if you would like to be on the Anne Boleyn tour May 2024, please, please, please take a look at britishhistorytours.com for the details, and book on quickly, because it fills up. It always fills up. I need to mention, because I haven't, you can just about see on Instagram, you can see but the candle behind me, and on Facebook and YouTube. I have to say a big thank you to Siobhan at Cleo Candles, because she sent me not one but 2 candles. So I can actually show you one here as well. These candles, now she sent me them for free, so I am going to give her a plug, but I don't think if I wasn't incredibly impressed with them. And Siobhan's idea is to take you into history with smell. I mean, smell's very evocative. This particular one that I'm holding up is the Elizabeth Bowes Lion candle, which accompanies can accompany Gareth Russell's book, Do Let's Have Another Drink, about the Queen Mother. This one is supposed to evoke Glamis. So the library, I think, in Glamis, it's got to be leather and old books, and it's amazing. The one I have burning at the moment is the Eleanor of Aquitaine candle. So watch this space, because we're working on a candle together, myself and Siobhan, which is exciting. What time are we on, everybody? 50 minutes. So tonight, if you are around, History After Dark is all on Henry VIII. For any of you who haven't ventured into History After Dark yet, History After Dark is myself, Dr. Kat Marchant, and Catherine Brooks, and we are a little bit reins off and talk about what we want, or how we want to talk about stuff. We are in the year of the deceased Git, 2023. We are going through a candidate each week, excuse me. And tonight is Henry VIII. By the way, we are also scoring and ranking the Git. So we will have an ultimate Git of 2023, an ultimate deceased Git. Lisa, what does the Eleanor candle smell of? Do you know, I would have to look up what the notes say, because I'm no good at just explaining what smells are. It's a much more feminine smell, I would say, the Eleanor candle. It's sweeter, um, more perfume like. It's really nice. I'd say it probably has flowers in it. I'm sorry for not being able to be more precise. Brianna, History After Dark, it's always a fun time. Well, I think talking about Henry VIII tonight as well is going to be particularly interesting. We're going to talk about so we always talk about their personal life, their public life, and their legacy. So Henry VIII is going to have is going to have quite a kicking, I think. So please come along tonight if you want to. 8:15 tonight. We're history.after.dark on Instagram and History After Dark, just like that on YouTube. So yeah, we want you to put in your comments as well. Clearly Henry VIII has a busy life. We may not be able to cover everything in a particular detail. So anyway, but we're interested in what you have to say as well. Living an Eclectic Life has just bought me a $9.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. Really grateful for your support. Like I say, you can buy me badges on. You can only do it live though. I think you can buy me badges on Instagram Live. You can buy super chats and stickers. It turns out on YouTube, stars on Facebook, or you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Philippa. But what I would love you to do is come and join my Patreon. It's Patreon, which is spelled patreon.com/British History, because then I've got loads in there that I give back to you, as well as discounts and early access and blogs and videos and behind the scenes stuff as well. So hopefully I will see you tonight at 8:15 UK time, whatever that is, wherever you are. Oh, Maria says he's divisive. Not sure if we have any in our ranks, but I've met people who strongly defend and admire Henry VIII and all his actions with no exception, which baffles me. I think so I'm picking up the legacy tonight. So I might talk to that point tonight, actually, because a lot of that is Henry's I think it was Henry's ability to or focus on his image, how he managed his image in life and tried to manage it after his life. But then I think there's a massive nostalgia for history that puts people like Henry VIII on a bit of a pedestal that he didn't deserve. One of my arguments will be as well that if he hadn't have had 6 wives, would we be speaking about him at all? I think that is the hook into him being talked about in any real way, because he is not really any well, we can go on. We'll talk about dissolution of the monasteries clearly as well tonight about him. But again, would he have even thought of doing that had it have not been for his marriages? Brianna says, looking forward to the Patreon book club in a couple of weeks. Yes, on the 19th of March, we have book club in Patreon. We have it would be our first meeting online. So we're doing it via Zoom. So everyone gets to come on and see each other and have a chat. We're getting a lovely community actually built up in Patreon. It's really nice. And we actually get to virtually, but face-to-face meet on the 19th of March. And we'll be talking about Gareth Russell's book, is the one we're reading at the moment, about the Titanic. It's called The Sinking of the Titanic. No, what's it called? The Ship of Dreams, The Sinking of the Titanic and the End of the Edwardian Era. That's our first book. And then we'll be moving on to our second, which I've forgotten which one it is. One of the ones in the back. I have them all stacked. So this year we'll be looking at obviously Gareth's book, Blood, Fire and Gold by Estelle Paronk, The House of Dudley by Joanne Paul, Houses of Power by Simon Thurley, and The Sisters Who Would Be Queen by Leander Delisle. Not necessarily in that order, but there you go. Right, everybody, thank you so much. I will see some of you tonight on History After Dark. And if you want links to any of the things that I've spoken about today, you can go to my bio, you'll find links, but also sign up to my Substack. It's free. And I do a bit of a summary every Sunday of what I've been doing and talking about. And you'll find all the links to the things I've been talking about in there as well. Marie says House of Dudley's the third book. I think you're right, because I think it's only just being released in America. Is that right? So we had to leave it a little while to give people a chance to read it. Try and be practical here, you know. Okay, everybody, have a fabulous rest of your day, or if you're over there in Australia, down there in Australia, and you're about to go to bed, have a lovely sleep. I will see you all really soon. Bye bye.